Chapter 8 from the Official NASA Procedures for Contact with Intelligent Extraterrestrial Life Manual. Translation. Translation of an incoming communication from IEL will probably not be easy. Consider that there are thousands of human languages on our own planet, most of which were impossible for the speaker of another language to understand. The task of translating these communications should be directed to NASA's Alien Communication Office, which is staffed by many distinguished mathematicians and linguists who've had extensive training in interpreting potential alien communication. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to formulate a response or communicate with the IEL on your own. Until their language is properly understood, even the slightest gesture or inflection, no matter how innocuous, could be considered threatening or hostile. Bad news. Lunar Day 252, right after breakfast. "We have to tell Nina," I said, exiting the greenhouse, "right away." "Nina?" Cesar asked, following me with Kira and Violet. "She's not going to care about your dumb science project." Kira didn't bother trying to explain what was really going on to Cesar. Instead, she said, "I think telling Nina's a mistake."
"Yeah," Violet said, "telling Nina is a mistake."
"Well, Nina ordered me to tell her about anything important immediately," I said. "Well, this is important." "No, it's not," Cesar said. "It's just a bunch of stupid seeds." I stopped suddenly, having noticed something highly unusual. The doors to the science pod were closed. It was the first time the doors had been closed in the 8 months I had been at MBA. I had known they could be closed. If there was an emergency, there were several areas at MBA that could be sealed off from the rest of the base, and the science pod was one of them. But the doors had been open for so long I forgot they even existed. And it was unsettling to see them closed, kind of like walking into your house and finding a room missing. It made MBA feel even smaller and more claustrophobic than before. "Why's the pod closed off?" Kira asked, echoing my thoughts. "Well, Mom said she had a call with Earth this morning," I said. "Maybe everyone else is on it too." "What kind of call would all the adults have to be on?" Cesar asked.
"Maybe they're asking for more apple seeds," Violet suggested.
Kira walked up to the door and pressed her ear against them. She listened a few seconds and then frowned. "I can't hear anything. These are totally soundproof." And that made sense. The science pod doors had to be thick and sturdy because they needed to hold up in emergency situations. Unlike the walls of our residences, which were so cheap and thin, I could currently hear my father and Nina arguing in Nina's room on the other side of the base. I couldn't hear them well enough to make out exactly what they were saying, but I could guess. My father was berating Nina for bringing me into the murder investigation, and Nina was annoyed that this was keeping them off their important call with NASA. I started toward Nina's residence again. Kira bounded after me. "Whoa, you seriously shouldn't tell Nina about this yet." "Why not?" I demanded. Kira gave Cesar a wary glance. Obviously, she didn't feel comfortable discussing this in front of him. So she lied to throw him off track. "Like Cesar said, she's not going to care, and besides, we all have to get to school. Class is about to start." She looked to Cesar. "Didn't you promise that you were going to go get Inez and Camose there?" "Maybe," Cesar said. There was a decent chance he would have blown this off. Cesar wasn't very good about getting himself to school on time. But then Lily and Pat and Schoberg came around the far side of the greenhouse, headed for the mess. I was surprised to see them up and about. They should have been awake at this time most days, since they were supposed to go to school with us. But the Schobergs often skipped their classes, arguing that they were on vacation, and besides, they didn't really have to learn anything because they were going to inherit a huge fortune no matter what. But today, in addition to their general hatred of school and early mornings, their father had nearly died. That seemed like a better excuse than usual to skip school. Patton looked haggard, like he hadn't been able to go back to sleep, while Lily looked surprisingly put together. She had her hair done up and her makeup on, and she beamed when she saw Cesar. Another thing that I and everyone else at MBA knew due to our thin walls was that Lily had a big crush on Cesar. "Good morning," she crooned like it was a totally normal day. "How's it going, Cesar?" "Okay," Cesar said, heading back to the mess to talk to her. How's your dad? Better, Lily said. He's a little loopy, but he'll live. Patton sat down heavily at a table, glowering. He didn't seem that pleased by the idea of his father surviving. Then he noticed me and paled a bit. A month before, when Patton had been trying to beat me up, Zan had rescued me by appearing to him as a terrifying space snake. She had literally scared the pee out of Patton, and ever since he had been extremely skittish around me, worried that I could summon the snake again whenever I wanted. His family insisted, correctly, that space snakes didn't exist and thought Patton was being crazy. But since Patton had actually seen a space snake and they hadn't, he stuck to his story no matter how much they ridiculed him. In the meantime, I was enjoying his fear of me to the fullest. It had kept him from bullying me, or anyone else, for weeks. I gave him a friendly little wave. Even that made him flinch in fright. While Cesar was distracted by the Schobergs, Kira and I slipped away, and Violet followed us. With most of the adults inside the science pod, it was a lot easier to find privacy at MBA than usual. No one was in the control room or the robotics center. The staging area by the airlock was completely empty. We stopped there, though we still took care to keep our voices down. What if Nina's the one who poisoned Lars? Kira asked. I looked at Violet. I wasn't thrilled about having this conversation in front of her, but now that Kira had begun it, I knew that there was no other option. Violet was obviously fascinated, and any attempt to ditch her now would probably result in her throwing a fit. Well, Nina asked me to help look for the killer, I said. Why would she do that if she was the killer? To divert attention from herself, Kira said.
Yeah, Violet echoed. To revert attention from herself.
In this way, Kira went on, she could use you to help shift the blame to someone else. I thought about my conversation with Nina. Well, she did tell me to keep an eye on Chang.
Chang?
Violet asked, way too loud.
He would never poison anybody. He's too nice.
Behind Violet's back, Kira rolled her eyes, indicating that she didn't believe that Chang was such a saint. But this still didn't change her thoughts about Nina. There, you see? Anyone else? Well, actually, she told me to keep an eye on everyone else.
Even me? Violet asked, startled. I wouldn't poison anyone. Even Roddy, and he's a jerk.
Everyone except you, I corrected.
Well, Inez wouldn't poison anyone either, Violet said, and neither would Kamoji.
Okay, I won't investigate them.
And Mom and Dad.
Of course. Think about it, Kira told me before Violet could list any more people. Nina has as much reason to hate Lars as anyone here. More, maybe. He's been a problem for her since the day he got here, and I know he's threatened to destroy her career when he gets back to Earth. So what if she couldn't take it anymore? She poisons him, and then sets out to pin it on Chang, or somebody else, and then she brings you in to back up her side of the story. I mulled that over. It wasn't completely implausible. Well, how could she make me back her up? Well, she's running the investigation, right? So she controls all the evidence. She asked you to come directly to her with anything you found out. Well, if it's evidence against her, she can ditch it. And maybe she can even plant some evidence against someone else.
But Nina wouldn't poison Lars, Violet said. Poisoning someone is wrong, and Nina's the moon-base commander.
So, Kira said, Nina's broken the rules before, like last month when she went missing. But she was manipulated into doing that, I countered. Big deal, Kira said. She still did it. She's not as straight-laced as she'd like us all to think that she is. Plus, the woman came out of the military, so she's been trained to kill people. That's what the military does. And she's weird. She's one of the weirdest people here, and this place is chock full of wackos. Think about how cold and detached she is. That's the classic profile for a serial killer. I thought about it some more. I'd spent a lot more time alone with Nina than Kira had. It hadn't been enjoyable, but I'd done it, so I'd had a bit more of a glimpse of the person beneath the icy exterior than Kira had. I don't think she's a psycho killer, I said finally. Fine, Kira said, obviously annoyed that I hadn't agreed with her. Then who do you think tried to kill Lars? Well, it could have been Chang, I pointed out, and then started ticking names off on my fingers. For Dr. Goldstein, she was the one with access to the apple seeds, and now they're gone. Or Dr. Iwanyi, or Dr. Balnikov, or pretty much anyone here, including the whole Schoberg family.
Patton and Lily? Violet asked innocently. But they're Lars's children.
I don't think they like him very much, I explained. Patton certainly doesn't. Lars treats him like crud, and they have more to gain from Lars's death than anyone else here. Trillions of dollars, maybe.
Well, would Mrs. Schoberg get that much if Lars died too? Violet asked.
Probably, I said.
Well, then I think she did it, Violet proclaimed. She's mean, and her face is all weird.
I returned my attention to Kira. That's an awful lot of potential suspects. It is, Kira agreed, but that doesn't mean Nina didn't do it, which means that reporting everything you find to her is a bad idea.
Why? Violet asked.
Because keeping things to ourselves gives us an edge, Kira explained. If we don't tell Nina we know about the missing seeds, then she doesn't know we know about the missing seeds. If she knows we know, then she can get rid of the evidence that she took them. But if she doesn't know that we know, then maybe she drops her guard and we can bust her. Understand?
No, Violet said.
Kira sighed. Well, then just trust me. I know what I'm talking about here, and if there's anyone we should be investigating, it's Nina. She's definitely been hiding something lately. It seemed to me that everyone had been hiding something lately, but I didn't say it. Nothing I said was going to change Kira's mind, and there was a decent chance that she was right. Well, what do you want to do? Kira put a finger to her lips and beckoned us to follow her and started up the stairs toward Nina's residence. For once, Violet took the hint and stayed silent. School was about to begin, and we should have been in the rec room, but suddenly this seemed much more important than English class. We crept up to the catwalk. Now that we were right outside Nina's door, we could hear her and my father arguing inside much more clearly. But Kira didn't stop there. Instead, she led us past Nina's door into that of our own residence. I realized what she was up to and used my thumbprint to unlock the door. We slipped inside and headed right for our sleep pods, which were aligned along the wall to Nina's room. We each picked one. Violet and I took our own pods while Kira took Mom's, and then climbed inside and got as close to the wall as we could. We could now hear Dad's and Nina's conversation almost as clearly as if we'd been in Nina's residence ourselves. Both of them were angry, speaking louder than they might have done otherwise. I wondered if both were assuming that everyone else was in the science pod or at school. And you have put my son's life in danger yet again, Dad was saying. He won't end up in danger if he doesn't do anything stupid, Nina argued. You can't guarantee that. Remember what happened to him the last time there was a murderer on the loose? Garth Greason nearly killed him with a robot arm. Last time, Dashiell was investigating behind my back, sneaking around without authorization. This time I can keep an eye on him. You can't do that 24 hours a day. How could you even think about something like this without talking to me or his mother first? As I'm sure you're aware, I have more than enough trouble to deal with right now. So do you and Chang and every other adult here. And that was before we had another killer on the loose. Dashiell is smart, and he was available, so I utilized him. You utilized him? Dad repeated. He's my son, not an appliance. Can you even imagine what you would feel like if someone put a child of yours in harm's way like this? You mean the way you risked his life this morning with that stunt on the surface? Nina asked pointedly. There was virtually no risk in that. We were being careful. Well, I'm being just as careful with this investigation. End of story. We've wasted enough time as it is. We're supposed to be on that call with everyone else, and I have 10,000 things I have to take care of before 1000 hours tomorrow. The sound of Nina's footsteps could be heard headed for the door. Dad didn't follow her, though. What does it even matter, Nina? He asked. With everything else that's going on right now, is finding Lars's killer really so important that you have to drag Dashiell into it? Is it worth putting his life at risk like this? The lives of everyone on this base are already at risk, Nina said curtly. I'm doing everything I can to protect all of them. I stiffened, disturbed by that statement, and whacked my head on the ceiling of my sleep pod. I heard the door open in Nina's residence. She seemed to be waiting for my father to leave with her. Kira, Violet, and I quickly clambered out of the sleep pods and ran for our own door. Without discussing it, we had all come to the same conclusion at once. There was no point in hiding the fact that we'd been eavesdropping. Whatever was going on was too important. We raced out the door right as Dad and Nina exited Nina's residence. Dad and Nina both froze on the catwalk, startled by our sudden appearance. "What's going on?" I asked, before they could tell us that we were supposed to be in school. "Yeah," Kira agreed. "What's with all the secrecy?" Nina narrowed her eyes at us angrily. It looked like she was going to chew us out. Only Dad spoke up before she could. "The moon base is in trouble," he said. "We need to evacuate."